Hey, it's Russ from the Infectious Groove podcast and right here on the Infectious Groove Music YouTube channel. This is a topic that I've wanted to cover for a little while, and I will tell you in advance, I've got a couple of obvious ones that you've probably talked about with your friends previously on this list, but I've got a couple on this list that I think are kind of surprising to some folks, and that is the topic of 5 songs that are hits that sound like other songs. And for most of these, it's not just something that someone did by accident or whatever. It's like a well-known song that was already a hit, and then somebody just kind of came along and lifted parts of it for theirs. The first one that I'm going to talk about is I think an example where the original is probably the much lesser known of the two. But that is, if you compare the songs Come As You Are by Nirvana and the song 80s by Killing Joke, they're really similar. Now, I don't think this is as egregious of a example as some of the others that I have on the list. But if you're a fan of Come As You Are and you've never heard the song Killing Joke by 80s by Killing Joke, I always put the links to all the songs in the description of the video. So the links for all of the hits and the songs that I think sound just like them are going to be in the description. Go click play on that Killing Joke song, and I think you'll hear quite a bit of similarities between the two, which I think is kind of surprising that it's that way, because when Nevermind came out, I remember Nirvana themselves saying that they felt like Teen Spirit was a big ripoff of the Pixies. And I didn't hear anybody else talking about that. So I thought it was funny Nirvana mentioned that. But then there's this Come As You Are example as well. The next two is kind of a twofer. And I don't know if I was an artist and somebody did this to me twice, I don't know if I would look at it as being offended, or I would look at it as like a compliment of sorts, like say like, hey, people love my stuff so much they're trying to sound just like it. The first example being Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down, and Sam Smith's Stay With Me. I could be wrong, but I believe the courts have actually ruled on this particular one. I mean, it's exactly the same melody all the way across the board. And I do like that Tom kind of raised a fuss about this, because you can't do that. You can't just come along and do exactly the same song and take credit for it. You got to pass out some credit to somebody else who already had an enormous hit with that song. And then the next one, again, Tom Petty back in the spotlight, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, their song Danny California sounds exactly like Mary Jane's Last Dance by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And again, I don't know if I'm Tom Petty. I don't know if I would be like, well, that's a sign I'm putting out. Like, imitation's the sincerest form of flattery, right? Or I don't know if you're like, yeah, but I worked hard and I wrote that, and so please stop ripping me off, The next one is one that I have tried hard to look around on the internet and see if anybody else has talked about this, or if anybody involved with either band has ever acknowledged this. And I can't find anything. So I'm not just begging for comments as usual here. Like, if anybody knows of a source where someone has openly discussed this, please share it with me, because I can't find it. And that is the Beatles' original song, Obla Di Bla Da, from the White Album, and the Offspring's Why Don't You Get a Job. It's the same song, like all the way across the board, including like certain sound effects throughout the song. And I just do not understand why I can't find anywhere on the internet where either band has talked about this. And this might be one where you have either heard the Beatles a song and not heard the Offspring, or you've heard the Offspring and you haven't heard the Beatles. Again, the links to the songs will be in the description. Check these two out and tell me how am I the only one talking about the fact that these songs sound exactly the same? I'm going to round this video out with one kind of like what I started with, where this is kind of a minor hit, and it's ripped off from an even more minor hit. But this has kind of been a passion for me for a long time, and this was actually the one that caused this video to happen. Is Hootie and the Blowfish had a hit with a song called Tucker's Town. And if you listen to, there was a band out of Detroit in the 80s called Rhythm Corps who had a song called Common Ground. That is exactly the same song as the Hootie and the Blowfish song Tucker's Town. And I mean, all the way to the song structure, the drumming, certainly the guitar parts are literally exact. I'm not talking about like GCD, like, where a bunch of songs use those chords. I'm talking about like the actual picking and strumming of the parts are exactly the same between Common Ground by the Rhythm Corps and Tuckerstown by Hootie and the Blowfish. So again, I know I've said this a lot in this particular video, like, please go look at the links in the description. But like, if you're not overly familiar with the Hootie song, or if you've never even heard the Rhythm Corps song, click both of those links and take a listen. And I think you'll be stunned at like how it's exactly the same song. And for the record, and I don't dislike Hootie and the Blowfish at all, but I love the Rhythm Corps song Common Ground. I always thought it should have been a much bigger hit. That's why I was kind of like almost a little offended when Hootie came along and did what I feel like is the same song, and ended up with a much bigger hit. It's not their biggest hit, but it's a much bigger hit. But please take a listen to those songs, and then tell me in the comments too some of yours that you think, like, you know, maybe some that no one ever talks about where you think this song sounds just like that one. I would love to go check those out myself as well. And as we always say in all these videos, thank you so much for watching.